Hello everyone, my name is Mariella Herberstein. I'm the Chair of Academic Senate, and in this video blog I'm summarizing the Senate meeting we held on September 4th. As always with Senate meetings, the full agenda is available on the Senate website, URL is below, and the full papers are available via Truth. So topic number 1 for the September Senate meeting was a welcome to new senators. It was the first meeting for a number of newly elected or co-opted or ex officio members. So we welcomed Associate Professor Yvonne Breyer, who has been co-opted to Senate following her appointment as chair of the Senate Learning and Teaching Committee. Yvonne has worked across a number of faculties at Macquarie University, and her research interests range from student participation to the online global learning and the digital transformation of higher education. I very much look forward to Yvonne's contributions in her role of chair of SLTC and as a member of Academic Senate. Next, we welcome Associate Professor Matt Bauer, who is filling a vacancy that was left behind by Associate Professor Mitch Parcell when he left, and this was a vacancy for an elected member for the Faculty of Human Sciences. We welcome Dr. Florence Chu. She has been co-opted to ensure that we have representation from non-faculty academic members. This vacancy was left by Professor Bill Ashraf when he left the university. Florence had been a member of Senate previously from 2016 to 2018, and I'm very grateful that Florence is dedicating the time to attend the next 3 Senate meetings so that we can, before we run the next election for the non-faculty elected members. We then welcomed Associate Professor Judy Homewood. She has joined Senate as an ex officio member in her capacity as acting PVC, Higher Education, Training and Partnerships. And finally, we welcome Professor Bernard Mans. Again, he joined as an ex officio member as the acting executive dean for the Faculty of Science and Engineering. So those were the new faces to Senate. Topic number 2 was the curriculum architecture and MQ 2020. This is a standing item delivered by the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, Professor Jamieson. Kevin offered a very brief update on curriculum architecture. He said that the curriculum 2020 is now at a point of maturity and is now being operationalized. He filled us in that there's communications rolled out to students affected by the new curriculum, including on the student website. Because this has now reached maturity, Kevin proposed that he will use his standing update for future meetings to focus on our TEXA re-registration, which is coming up in a few years, and update Senate on the preparations for the re-registration. Talking about curriculum architecture, the chair of the Academic Standards and Quality Committee, Associate Professor Katrina Lava-Mikoko, also spoke to a number of curriculum items that ASQC recommended to Senate, and she outlined how these decisions were considered by ASQC because they pertain to the new curriculum structure, and the committee endorsed, for example, waivers for the curriculum transitions, waivers to students, an update to the double degree exclusion list, update to the 2020 schedule, and the approval of new shell units for international experience. Katrina highlighted that that in these decisions it was considered by ASQC in a formal process, and a particular consideration was about student disadvantage, and that these decisions were not imparting a student disadvantage. Katrina also reminded Senate that these were now the new decisions that ASQC is focusing on in the recently approved shared academic governance model. That was topic number 2. Topic number 3 was the Senate projects for 2020. The Senate project for 2019. The project we discussed at Senate in the September meeting was the recommendations from the Freedom of Speech Inquiry and Assembly Working Group. I started off by inviting Ainsley Harvey, the Academic Senate Project Officer who supported this project, to speak to the methodology of this project. And Ainsley outlined not only the membership of the working group, but she also highlighted that the members were very engaged in this project. And she spoke of the numbers of policies that were being examined, the sector scan to see what other universities are doing in this space, and the structure of the report itself. The structure was around the recommendations of a draft draft freedom of speech model code, which was proposed by Justice French following the instigation by the Minister for Education. I then outlined the 10 recommendations of the report to Senate that the Working Party developed. Most of these recommendations really suggest an amendment to existing policies that are already in place at Macquarie University, and also highlighted a gap, a policy gap that the Working Party recommended to address. So this policy gap really relates to a gap around external speakers and how we regulate external speakers on campus. And I invited the Director of Government Relations, Peter McCarthy, for an update. Peter was also a member of the Working Party, and in parallel, at the same time, he also conducted a piece of independent work for the university executive who would be responsible for this policy to draft a policy that might address this gap about visiting speakers on campus. Peter outlined the consultation for this piece of work, including workshops for students and workshops for staff, and he is currently engaging in further consultation with groups around campus before bringing the policy to Senate for discussion. And with that, Senate approved the recommendations of the Working Party. Now, topic number 4 was the project planning for the 2020 Senate project. Here we discussed the establishment of the 2020 projects, and I invited Antonia Dykes, the Academic Senate Project Officer, to talk about the methodology of how we go about developing projects for Senate. Antonia described that the process is similar to last year. We review the policies that are due for review. We look at the strategic and external legislation to see whether there's any gaps that we need to address, and review the status update of current projects to see whether any of those flow into the next year. The next step is that we will have inputs from the chairs of Senate committees, the senators themselves, and the student senators over the next month to identify and then prioritize potential projects for Senate. I then charged the senators to start consultation within their faculties and their offices to seek feedback for ideas for projects that Senate might continue. We already have started this by meeting the associate deans and the heads of departments of each faculty and asked them directly whether they had any areas that they think Senate should be looking at. And I also encourage you, if you're reading this or watching this blog, to contact us if you think there's an area that is suitable for Senate to consider. What we will then do is we develop a draft list of the projects for the October meeting, have a discussion, and finalize the meeting at the September meeting to then endorse the projects by the Academic Senate Standing Committee in December. And finally, topic number 5 was to inform Senate that I will be on a short research stint in Berlin. I have been invited to the Wissenschaftskolleg to Berlin for 3 months from September to December, where I will work with some colleagues on a research project of mine. I will, of course, teleconference into my meetings with Senate and Council, but I've asked my Deputy Chair, Jackie Phillips, to chair the next 2 Academic Senate meetings, and Jackie will also attend in my stead the University Discipline Committee from September to December. I'm very grateful that Jackie is dedicating this time to help me out and allow me to go on this research stint. And I'm also very thankful for all the senators and the governance services for making this happen for me. And so this is it. This is the blog for the September meeting. If you're interested in attending Senate is of course open for all staff and students to attend. Just drop us a quick email. The next meeting will be October 22nd from 9:30 onwards, and come along and see what happens at Senate. That's it from me today, and I'll catch up with you at the next Senate video blog. Bye.